I was about 18 years old and I got into a car accident on my way to McDonald's. The guy came and ran the light and I went into his side and he went into the pole. And I had to get run to the ambulance, to the hospital by ambulance. But I would, God, thankfully I was fine. Went through to deal with the chiropractor. And after a couple of weeks going to the chiropractor because I had, a bulging discs as a result of the car accident. Couldn't go back to school. It was after my first year in college. So I went to the chiropractor and I said, you know what? I've been feeling this kind of like a lump in my leg and it hurts every time I drive. I don't know what it is. So he said, oh, well, you know what? Let's take a quick x-ray. So took the x-ray and nothing showed up in the x-ray. He's like, it's funny because we could clearly see it. We can feel it, but we can't see it on the x-ray. We went down to the doctor and they did a biopsy, came back, the doctor called probably about a couple days later, 2 days later, after I had the biopsy done and said, we need to schedule surgery because your daughter has cancer. I had the surgery, went through, everything. And I remember coming out of the surgery and they said that we were in the room, in my room recovering, and a number of other doctors stepped into the room as well. I'm like, who the heck are all these people? So they said, yeah, your surgery went well. However, in your pre-op, we noticed that you had some lesions in your chest x-ray. And it turned out that the cancer had already spread. A lump came up in my leg. Next thing you know, it had spread already into both sides of my lungs. Thankfully, I did not have to do chemo or radiation. However, during my recovery from my double lung operation, I almost died. They had to intubate me because I was not coughing up in blood. So I don't know if anyone has known anyone or experienced when you have surgery, they want you to keep coughing to cough up any fluids and everything like that. And I wasn't doing that. So they had to go in and literally pull it out of me, or else my lungs were what's left of my lungs was starting to collapse because they ended up having to shave off nodules and then take off part of one of my lungs. So I literally have like 1 and 2/3 of a lung, and had to keep practicing to expand that. And I remember my mom wanting to come into the recovery room, into ICU. And because they had to, intubate and do all the other procedures. And I was wide awake for this. Because they had to do all of that, they had to keep her out. And she didn't know why. But then when she came back and she saw me, my mom literally passed out on the ground next to me the moment that they let her in. Because she saw me and I didn't look like myself. Then they explained to her what happened. And, after the fact, she told me, she said, literally, she felt like angels had picked her up off the ground. Because she saw my whole life flash in front of her. And I'm laying down and I'm trying to, I'm seeing my mom and I'm trying to catch her because I see her falling, like just from her looking at me. It was a rough time for my family, helping me go through that. And not only, I've been in remission since then, and thankfully, I'll go and I'll get my x-rays, because one thing with this type of cancer is that, they didn't know if it was going to come back, when, where, but they felt like they were confident enough that they got everything so that I didn't need the chemo or radiation. Fast forward, a couple of years later, my sister was diagnosed with breast cancer. My cousin was diagnosed with breast cancer. My aunt was diagnosed with brain cancer. It was just, cancer was prevalent within my family.
Sorry, you gotta go. Sorry, you gotta go here.
So my sister decided that she was going to get genetically tested to see if she was predisposed to other forms of cancer. And she came back, after she was diagnosed with breast cancer, she realized that she was also predisposed to other forms of cancer. She was predisposed to the BRCA gene, breast and ovarian cancer, which she already knew she had the breast cancer, but she was also high risk for ovarian cancer. Because she did that, and my cousin also did the same, and she came back positive, I said, you know what? I have a family. At the time, I had Dennis, I had DJ. I didn't have Kayla yet. And Dennis and I spoke about this, and, I questioned whether to do it or not. And he said, why would you not? Like, don't be selfish. It's not just you. If something happened to you, what are we going to do? So I went ahead and I had the genetic testing, because, some people felt like ignorance is bliss. I'd rather not know and just let whatever happens, happens. And that was an approach one of my sisters actually took. She's unmarried, no kids. She chose not to get genetically tested because she didn't want to know. But me having a family, I needed to know. And it came back that I was also positive. And I had to endure a double mastectomy with reconstructive surgery. And Dennis held my hand throughout the whole process. He helped me through my recovery. The things that I was not able to do because of the pain, he did for me. And thank you for that.
Well, first of all, good afternoon. Dennis, you did that just to make me cry. So that's okay. Thank you for allowing me to come share my testimony today. And this has been a while coming. When I came up to New York this past summer, I was experiencing some pain in my upper rotator cuff area. It was bothering me and I didn't know why. And I just thought maybe because I'm carrying my bags. My husband gets on me all the time. He's like, why don't you use the rolling bag I purchased you, instead of your backpack? And so I just thought perhaps it was because I wasn't, I was carrying heavy bags. But what I noticed is that it was getting, exceedingly worse. And so my secretary, Ms. King, and my assistant principal, Dr. Hinton, who are both on here as well, they were like, look, you book leading with balance. You need to be balanced. So why don't you just go ahead and make a doctor's appointment? I was like, yeah, I'll go ahead and make a doctor's appointment. So I did, and they found out. I went to my general practitioner, and, it was an upper rotator cuff syndrome. And from there, they said, you're due for a mammogram. Do you want us to go ahead and just schedule? I'm like, sure, go ahead. Because I was going to do a lot of my appointments this summer. I did write Leading with Balance book, and I thought, I can't talk about leading with balance if I don't go full throttle. So from there, they scheduled the appointment. And typically when you have a mammogram, they say, well, if we call you back, then, we'll tell you why. If we don't call you back, it's nothing. So they called me back and say, hey, we thought we saw something. We just want you to come in. We just want to check it out. Okay, we'll come in, check it out. Came in, did another mammogram, and they explained to me that there's calcification, which is not uncommon in women's breasts, especially African-American women. We typically have dense breasts as well. And they were like, just be on the safe side. Let's go ahead and get a biopsy and we'll just go from there. And I was like, okay, cool. So We went from there. I got the biopsy the Wednesday before we dropped my son off to Howard this year. So I was kind of worried about it. At the time, my mom's last surviving sister was in a hospital. There was a lot going on. And they ended up calling me the following Tuesday and said, hey, you know, we got your results back. We want you, the doctor doesn't have anything for another 2 weeks, but if you can come in today or tomorrow, we want to go over your results. And I was like, okay. But in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, another 2 weeks, but they want me to come in. I'll just come in today. I'm not going to put off today what I can, no, tomorrow what I can do today. So I go into my assistant principal's office and I just boohoo and I just tell her, I said, look, they called me. They typically don't call you back unless there's something. She's like, hold on, don't worry. We don't know who's going with you. I was like, no one. She was like, you don't want anyone to go with you? I was like, no, because I don't want to alarm anyone. I just want to, you know, just go in and find out what's going on because it could be nothing. So she offered to go with me, and which is the best. You have a assistant principal who's just rocks with you. It's the best. And I said, yes. And she's like, go ahead. I'll take care of things here. I'll meet you there. So I get there. And, you know, when you go into the office and they're explaining to you the medical terms of what's going on, I was just sitting there. I was nodding my head and I was like, okay. And so she asked, did I have any questions? I said, well, can you just explain to me in layman's terms? Because I'm sure my mom, if I were explaining this to my mom, how would I explain this to my mother? Because I think I understood what she was telling me, but I wasn't quite sure. And so she explained to me in layman's term, and I said, so cancer? She said, yes, it's cancer. And then I lost it. I was devastated. It was not on my radar. It was, you know, who is it? You know? So I said, well, he asked a few more questions. And at that point I called my husband and we had him meet us downstairs in the doctor's office where we disclosed what was going on. The thing is, this was my first mammogram in years. I should have had one after Zuri, who's 3, but because I was nursing, I did not have a mammogram because they typically don't like to do a mammogram when you're nursing. And I didn't go back. I didn't go back because I'm a school leader. I'm working. I have a lot on my plate. Taking off. What is that? I'll take off for the children's appointments. But for my own appointment, is so much going on. A hurt arm, what is it? But then in hindsight, when I think back, having a rash under one side and then it going away, and then having a sore arm, I think it was just God's way of saying, okay, you didn't get it with the rash. Now I'm going to just have to let your arm hurt. And so I think that was something that I had to really wrap my mind around. But during that time, the following week, they said, we're going to refer you to a surgeon. I said, well, what stage is it? Well, we can't tell you the stage. The surgeon will let you know. So we go to the surgeon. By this time, I've told my immediate family. I called Dennis. He was one of the first people, and Denise, that I called because, interestingly, when I was in New York, one of the last nights there, we were on our way to dinner with Denise and I. Denise took me and she disclosed to me about her journey with the cancer. And she didn't have to disclose that. We were talking about it. But in hindsight, I started thinking back about the fact that God put her with me at that time so that she can be that person that I can go to and I can confide in and get those questions and answer that I had and I still have, and she's been there. And so in moving forward, after speaking with the surgeon, they explained to us that it was stage 0 and that the cancer was actually in my ducts, which leads me to part of my testimony with other people, with other women and men, because men can get breast cancer as well. One of the things that we're taught as women is to self-examine yourself. I do self-examine myself. I didn't have a lump. I didn't have a mass. It's in my ducts. So I would not have felt it. So if you are an individual who thinks that I'm doing my self-care, I'm not going to go to the doctor, but I'm doing my self-examinations, just know that there's 4 types of breast cancer, and not all breast cancers are identified through a lump. And so had I not been obedient and listened to my staff who was supporting me and encouraging me to go get checked out, had I not been listening to my sisters who were like, need to go get checked out, I wouldn't have discovered or even thought about doing the mammogram. I just want to say to the McKeseys and to OSG how appreciative I am, God is so good. You know, when Action and Anissa came out last week, it was my fall break, and I was bummed that I didn't get to go to California to be there and support the OSG family. And so when Jacko called and said I'll be in town on Friday and to do a photo shoot for her outcoming book, I was ecstatic. I felt great, and I was like, you know what, this is going to be great. And I heard that Action was coming, but I wasn't quite sure. And she popped up with her as well when we got to the studio. And they texted me, they were like, be there at 12:30. And it was like 10 o'clock and it's like an hour away. I was like, oh, okay, let me get it together. And I get there and they're not there, but the makeup artist is there. And she's like, Jacko's always late, da 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 da. I was like, well, you might as well get your makeup done. And I was like, me? She was like, yeah. And at this day, I wore my Leading with Balance Cancer, shirt. It was my first time wearing it. I was just wearing it to be wearing it because I thought it was cute. And so I got my makeup done and they come sashaying in and we hug and they got their makeup done. Jacko did her shoot and they were like, y'all should dress up too. I'm like, dress up, and Action and I are walking around the studio trying to find something to put on. Action's got something on. And I couldn't find anything. I found a jacket, but then the owner said, you know what? She looks like she's a little risky. Put her in that tulle dress. Now, let me tell you how God is. When I started thinking about my cover for Leading with Balance, I'd always told my sisters, and I told some people, like, okay, when I do my photo shoot, I'm going to wear this black tulle skirt, like a tutu. I'm just going to buy it from Amazon. I'm going to wear it. And when she told the stylist to put me in that black tulle skirt, I thought to myself, God has a sense of humor. How did he know? Well, not how did he know, but I always wanted to wear a black tulle skirt. But again, still, because they told me to bring my Lead with Balance book, I thought we were just going to be taking a book with Jacko. So we take our pictures and then they tell me, okay, now you take some pictures by yourself. I'm like, what? What is going on? Well, all in all, they orchestrated this whole thing and everyone in there knew except for me. And that's why they're behind me. And this is one of my favorite pictures because although you all weren't there, it was as if you all were there. They represented you guys well. And so I told Dennis, and he had been asking, when are you going to tell OSG? When are you going to tell OSG? I was like, I'm going to tell OSG. And it just so happened to be my last day of work. But I wanted to show this picture and share this picture with you guys because I wanted you to know that I know that you all are in my heart. I've received several calls and reach outs and, the outpouring of love that I've received, I have a sense of peace. And that's what I've been praying for because getting cancer, news of cancer is scary. But I can't leave out my wonderful sisters Dr. Zarina and Dr. Rashana, who have been lifesavers. I'm the oldest, so just so everyone understands. But when I say they have stepped up and they have taken the reign, and we switch roles every now and then. I can be the big little sister and they can be the little big sister. But when I tell you how good God is, when I think about my path and I think about everything that has happened up to this point, it's all been orchestrated to this point. Meeting Brianna, who's on here, Miracle Morning, meeting OSG. God knew that I needed all these tools, the savers, OSG, because he knew I was going to be going through this journey. And he needed to make sure that you all were with me when I did this. I truly, truly believe this. I believe that God has kept me here at Fountain Elementary School, home of the Bears, for 13 years because he knew if I left or been moved somewhere else, I would not have had the same level of support. I want to publicly thank my husband for being an amazing spouse and being patient with me through all this because I've taken him on a roller coaster. But I am appreciative of it. And I know it's not easy for him because he's a boss too, right? So he has an employee who's going through cancer right now as well. So he has it on both ends. So I want to at least take this time publicly to thank him in front of my Fountain, OSG, and Miracle Morning family and give him gratitude. Yeah, I know he's happy about that.
Well, Tucson, he's not man of many words, but when he speaks, it's something that is on his heart. And I had a chance last Thursday. He and I talked for over an hour on the phone, and it was just great to hear, somebody that was so open to hear about, ways in which he can handle this situation, right? Because as his wife, it's a challenge because one of the things I kept sharing with you is that it's hard for people to understand what a principal goes through every day. It's hard for people to understand what educators go through every day in terms of how much we pour out emotionally. But we are not as understanding about, listen, that's fine. You give whoever you want. When you come home, still have some for me. Right. And that's what me and Tu end up saying. It's like, nah, so you might have to pass some of that off to some other people, because when you come home, I need the emotion there as well. I'm gonna give you an opportunity to say a word or two, brother.
Right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. You know, this is exciting actually. So, you know, I love and celebrate my wife. She's great at what she does. I always say that she has a gift, right? And so any teacher, anybody that works with kids has a gift, because I don't think I can last very long, right? But I am truly thankful to you and Denise, because I don't know if I could have helped her through this journey not knowing or not having that experience, you know what I mean? And so I'm grateful that she's able to talk to somebody and kind of offload her thoughts and her feelings. And in a weird way, it helps me as well, right? And so I'm really grateful for you all. OSG has been tremendous. Brianna has been tremendous. Everybody has been tremendous. And I'm truly grateful for that, because like we talked before, I don't always know the emotions that women go through, right? I'm more of a cut and dry kind of person. And, you know, I always try to be the caregiver, if you will, right? You know, my mom used to tell me, don't you be nervous, let me be nervous for you. So that's what I tell her. Don't you be nervous, I'll be nervous for you. So it's just because one of us has to be sane at some point, right? And so I try to be that person for her. I may not always get it, but I'm always there. And at the end of the day, she knows I'm going to be there regardless. So no matter what she decides, you know, one breast, two, it doesn't matter. She's still the same person inside. So, you know, I'm just here to support her, and I truly appreciate her, and I love her to death.
I'll start with Dr. Z, and then I come over to Dr. Rashana. You know, talk to her, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about this experience that you've had with your sister, and just give us some real advice about how we need to start taking better care of ourselves.
Hello, OSG family again. I actually feel like I'm an OSG cousin, so I just kind of indoctrinated myself in there.
You fam now, you fam.
Right. No, for real though. Thank you so much for having us. This is actually, I feel more honored to be here, obviously to be again a support to Jam, as we lovingly call her, but just in general, I really was told in general this would be conversational. So, which I definitely, I'm really, really excited about that part of it, because I'm here to really just lend support, really, quite frankly. How I would like to start this, for those who don't know me, I am Dr. Zarina, also known as Dr. Z to many. I'm a sports medicine integrative pain management specialist, and I help individuals, groups, and corporations go from pain to pain freedom long term, from the inside out, which we're going to talk about, and the outside in, so that they can truly live an MVP, the most valuable person of their life and health. And I do that through multiple platforms via books, best-selling books, also natural vitamin supplement line, as well as being a physician to many and speaking. So that's kind of my platform. But today I'm sis and I'm cousin. All right. Okay. OSG cousin, to really lend, to expand the conversation, quite frankly, as African-American people, in particular with this conversation, that's something that we talked about a lot. One part of the conversation for Jam's journey, I remember she was asking me to, you know, check out that shoulder. I mean, sports medicine doc, what we doing here? Like, check out the shoulder. And the other sister that you see on the screen, Dr. Rashana, kind of ruined that for the whole family, because I don't treat family. So I don't treat family anymore. Well, really not her, but the niece. Anyway, the long story short of that is I just refused. I was like, no, Jam. Then I said, okay, I'll look at you, but you still have to go, you know, and get seen. I'll look at you, but it's just a sidebar. I still need you to go get seen. And thank God, because as Jam just pointed out, I really feel like that was God's messaging. And I feel grateful that I said no, quite frankly, because here we are, again, just being obedient to sticking to those things so that we can take the right steps towards it. I really, really love one thing that you said, Jam, earlier about well, one, yes, being obedient, but the signs that God was trying to basically point you in direction. And I think I told you, and I was talking to Denise on the phone the other night, when I say, you know, you have inspired me as a supporter, as a sister, as a human being, because the mastery of manifestation that I have witnessed in you in the last 365 days has truly been, I know now it was all obviously orchestrated. Even when I was doubting, I'm like, girl, you better keep your head on swivel. You don't know those people like that. But for real, none of that mattered. And you were obedient. You stayed faithful. You stayed faithful. That is above all. That's really where it was at, being stayed faithful. What I want to try to tell Jam, you know, and anybody else who may be supporting someone who cancer or any other major diagnosis, is that you don't have to be okay. We've heard that before, but really unapologetically be in that space. And I even told her, even if it's me, you know, if it's me, it's okay to block me. Like, do what is necessary for your mental and your physical sanity unapologetically, because I think it's critical that, especially as Black women, we do it. Sometimes we try to put our toe in that self-care, but oftentimes we still do it with guilt. We still do it with, you know, all these other narratives that we're telling ourselves, and we don't allow ourselves to truly do it unapologetically. That's been my mantra of late, but really for the last few years, but it just been re-emphasized this year. But for me, in terms of the support, where I find it to be the hardest is someone, I think is a Raven. I hope I'm not mispronouncing your name.
Yeah,
but
Raven.
When you said the epitome of Kirk, of the master of, you know, deflection, or I'm all right, that's literally how she been since the womb. And she get it honest, but because we know that part of her personality, trying to keep it together, really for me, and if you know someone like that, strong people need strong people too around it, right? It's okay for them to find a safe place to fall. Dennis and Denise and OSG family in general, you all have truly, truly been that, even in those time and spaces where she's trying to, you know, basically day to day. Some days she's trying to be strong with in front of us, and so you all are that soft place. And then sometimes it's vice versa. But she always has been that way, where she tends to want to, you know, be okay in all cases, in all scenarios, in all situations, which breeds stress, in my opinion, which I've told her that too. So I just want to encourage you all, if you're a support person, to try to, you know, continue to re-emphasize and encourage that person, that loved one, that it's okay for you to be that soft space for them, a soft place for them to fall. Because even holding in the stress of trying to keep it together is not helpful from a physical, mental, you know, stress perspective. Increasing our stress hormones, obviously cancer will love that. And we don't want to give it any food, any nourishment, if you will. So my main goal has always been trying to, so far, I hope you felt the Jam, was to kind of keep your stress level down. You know, that's been my intentions, is to, you know, keep it light, you know, be that space and time that you know, wherever you may need it. And if I'm getting on your nerves, that's fine too. All of those different things, but trying to push softly, but more importantly, just try to be a soft space, a safe space for her to, and whoever your loved one is. But that's in general, you know, that's my in general point, but I don't know if we could definitely go into some more specifics about how I do recommend some of my patients. In particular, I call it the trifecta, which is an anti-inflammatory lifestyle, strength and flexibility. That's pre, post, whatever cancer in general. But that's something that we really need to be looking at in terms of it comes to our wellness in general. And there are some good places that we can just start at the basics and make sure it's consistent. Sometimes it's not the big major changes in our lifestyle. It's really about the small changes that are consistent. And that oftentimes can set us up for a lot of success. Also, when it comes to prevention, unfortunately, truly, there's not necessarily a surefire way to prevent. But as Jam just pointed out, and I was grateful you said that, the self-examination is not enough. We have to be more diligent, in particular in our African-American communities, to get rid of the stigmas of the things that we've kind of passed on from generation to generation, of not going to see our physician, of stigmatizing even our mental wellness, which Dr. Rashawn is an expert in. You know, these kind of conversations should be dinner table conversations. And hopefully we can start to expand that tonight, and you can expand that to your dinner tables moving forward. And I'm here again, like I said, to further this conversation tonight. Thank you for having me, though.
What's so important here is that after we have these conversations, is that we don't just leave it here, right? You know, what right. you're talking to us, but we also impact hundreds, if not thousands, of other people. And so I think we got to still carry that message out to the larger community as well, that it's imperative that we take care of ourselves, but we also got to maybe show people on how to do it. And so one of the things I know you'll talk about later is, again, you know, what are some of the ways that we can utilize supplements and other things like that to really help us to remain healthy as possible. As you said, there's no surefire way of preventing cancer, but I do think that there are ways for us to start taking better care of our bodies so that we can minimize the chances of the impact that it's going to make on us. So I'm going to definitely come back to you later on that. And I know people have 1,000 questions that they want to ask all of you. But I'm going to go over to Dr. Rashana. How will you? This is my first time getting a chance to meet you, although I've heard so much about you, and, you know, just understand how this all worked today. You definitely are now closing the gap, because one of the things that we focus here on OSG is how do we help to deal with the health aspect of our communities and the people that we're surrounded by every day. And so we always talk about the physical, and then, you know, recently we've talked about the mental based on what's happened during the pandemic, but we know that has been an issue for quite some time, especially in the Black community. So talk to us a little bit about you and what you up to and how you've been able to support your sister throughout this time. And again, just drop some gems on us on how we can actually take better care of ourselves mentally as well.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I've heard so much about you all, and I do also appreciate the support that you all provide for her. And just as my sister, Dr. Zarina, said, it is, God is the best of planners. And so we have definitely been seeing things that might, in some people's perspective, look like random things occurring, but I don't think so. This was definitely in God's plan. So I am Dr. Rashana. I am a double board certified adult, child, and adolescent psychiatrist. So basically I work with all ages, the children and the older folks. Mm-hmm. And I'm also a best-selling author. And wrote a book about postpartum depression, because I too had suffered with postpartum depression. And I felt that it was important to talk about my personal experience. I felt that will help others to talk about it. So I'm so proud of you, Jam, for being open and about sharing what you've been going through. And because I know for me, when I talked about my personal experience of postpartum, it was very freeing. And you felt less burden. And, you know, God created us to be in communities, not alone. And so I really appreciate it. And I'm sure that what you shared today will help many others. All right. So, but one of the things I'm passionate about educating people about mental health issues. I want to dispel stigma regarding it. I call myself the stigma slayer because I'm very passionate about it, because I think stigma gets in the way of many of us getting the help, acknowledging that we need help and getting the help that we may need. And it ends up perpetuating generationally, okay? And so I think that our mental health is equally important to our physical health as well as our spiritual health. I try to approach things in, like, you might have heard, in a biopsychosocial and spiritual perspective, that all those things, as Dr. Z said, there's a trifecta, all those things will influence your mental health. Your mental health will influence your physical health will influence your mental health, your spiritual health, all of that. So it's very important, as we strive to obtain balance, that we also give the attention that we need to all of those realms, because all of those realms is what's going to help us. Because just as right now, Jam's going through this cancer, where we're already claiming that that's going to be gone, right? But she's also talked about how it has influenced her spiritual health. She talked about how it has influenced her social, meaning her community, her tribe. And so all of these things, in seeking to lead with balance or be more balanced, we have to give attention to those things. Because if we have a scale and then we only focus on work, guess what? Everything else is going to fall by the wayside. Okay. So it's important because a lot of people rely on you, right? You are the mom, the dad, or your staff, you're all of that. But you can't give what you don't have. If you don't replenish yourself, you can't give. So thank you again. And we could talk about some more, but one of the things you asked about, how am I supporting her? I just try to be a listening ear. I try to take myself out of it. I know when I first, and she doesn't know this, but when I found out about it, I cried like I never cried. I can't remember the last time I cried. You know, them nasty cries, them ugly cries that you might have. I was just beside myself because I wasn't expecting it either. But once I got myself together and realized that, okay, I have to be supportive. Yes, we're all going to do this, but she is truly the one walking this. We holding her hand, but she's truly walking this. And so I just try to be supportive. Sometimes I may ask questions. I know that sometimes the questions may be a little irritating, or sometimes questions may feel intrusive. I think sometimes you have to be aware of that too. You got to be able to read the room when the person, because I know intention, many of us care about her and we just want to know how we fit in. How can we be supportive? But just listening. We often followed her lead. We're asked, hey, am I overstepping my boundaries? Oh, what would you like for us to do? She will let us know. She would let us know, hey, no, I'm not ready yet. Okay, fine. You just let us know when you're ready. And then we've tried to come up with a plan in advance. So with the book that I wrote, one of the things is postpartum plan, prehab postpartum plan, which is trying to anticipate. You can't anticipate everything, but trying to anticipate some of the things that she may need in advance before the surgery. And so we even met together as sisters oftentimes. We had a meeting with each of our spouses as a group to talk about, hey, what is it that you need? Okay, let's look at the schedule. Okay, what kind, do you need meals? That type of thing. So I think that trying to be as supportive as you possibly can, trying to plan if you can, trying to figure out what her needs are.
Thank you so much, Brother Dennis, Jam, and all of my OSG family. It's such a wonderful pleasure to be here. Brother Dennis, what you don't know, and this is the alignment of God. I was diagnosed on my 40th birthday with uterine cancer, October 12th, literally a couple of weeks ago. Wow. And I am scheduled for a hysterectomy on December 15th. And I didn't realize the healing that I would receive on this call. So I was praying and meditating this morning I meditate for children all over the world every day. But this morning I saw your face in my meditation and it was like so clear. It was literally like a halo around you. It was like, reach out to this brother, Ashina. You have to be there today. So, and I get emotional because it was 6 a.m. and I'm like, this brother's not going to respond back to me. And I'm like, brother, can I do a mindful breath for you, for OSG family today? And you like, absolutely. So just look what happens when you walk in spirit, right? When you walk in spirit, there's nothing that can bound you. With that being said, Jam and all of my sisters who have experienced, I'm a cancer survivor, so this is the second time it's coming, but I'm gonna knock it out like I did it last time.
The reality is that when we think about this space, the psychological space of being able to create that balance psychologically and physiologically between our mind and our body, mindfulness becomes an amazing tool to center you, to calm you, to let you step into your power and lean into your grace.
OSG and what they're doing is just transcendental, right? And they've become vehicles, and they've allowed themselves to become vehicles for what really is God's work, and for them to be able to just be vulnerable and to share and to have all in one place, all of this African brilliance, and knowing that all of us are really our ancestors' wildest dreams, right? And we stand in that power, and we're rooted in that power. And Dennis doesn't know it, but he's the village head. He's the village chief. And Denise is the village chiefess. And I might have messed that word up, but you know, in Africa, everything flows through the woman, right? Kings aren't made kings by men. They are made kings and chiefs by the women and the council of women. And, you know, to be here with my OSG sisters who are a council of women and giving counsel to each other and giving space for their partners, for us, the husbands and the men, to be able to have a space where we can also partake in it. I felt guilty jumping on a call today because I was in the process of picking my own wife up who had surgery today. And so when I logged on, we were still driving from the hospital. So, you know, God always has a plan. And so it says right place, right time. But like I told you, Jamila, when you called me, you know, we're in this fight together. You're not in this fight alone. Your fight is our fight. Your win is our win. Your healing is our healing.